For week 2 of the basic serials cataloging class, in this video we are going to talk about the sources of information for serials cataloging, meaning where do you look to get the information that you're going to include in your catalog record. First of all, we'll talk about the basis of the description. Which issue are you going to base your description off of? Since a serial record is meant to describe the whole publication and not any one individual record, you don't necessarily treat it as if you're describing one issue in its entirety, but you do have to give indication of what you're using to create this description so that
이 부분에 대해서 좀 더 자세히 설명을 해보겠습니다. 지금 표시기호 362가 연월차 사항입니다. 여기서 정확하게 창간호나 종간호를 소장하지 않아서 우리가 언제부터 출판이 되었고 언제 끝났는지 모르는 사항을 비확정형이라 이야기를 하고 이 경우에 다른 정보원으로부터 체계했다는 상황이기 때문에 362의 연월차 표시사항의 제1권 제1호 대신 1980년 발행된 제4호권 제1호부터 사용한다고 지금 이야기를 하고 있습니다. 이건 현재 새로운 코막에서도 이 내용을 표시하고 있고, 그 다음 캐리스에서도 대학도서관을 중심으로 운영하는 캐리스에서도 이 사항을 지금 적용하고 있습니다. 캐리스에서 이 내용을 적용하고 있는 이유는 기본적으로 외국 자료들이 많이 들어오기 때문에, 특히 연속 간행물에 있어서는 외국 자료가 많기 때문에 이런 문제점을 해결하고자 발빠르게 RDA를 적용하고 있는 상황이라고 볼 수가 있습니다.
for week 2 of the basic
다시 아까
First of all, we'll talk about
계속하겠습니다.
the basis of the description. Which issue are you going to base your description off of? Since a serial record is meant to describe the whole publication and not any one individual record, you don't necessarily treat it as if you're describing one issue in its entirety, but you do have to give indication of what you're using to create this description so that other people can verify that they have the same item. If possible, you should base your description off of the first issue. But sometimes you don't have the first issue. Your library starts describing during a later year, for example. And so in that case, you should work off of the earliest available issue. And you'll have a note saying description based on, and then the enumeration of that issue. If you're cataloging from the first issue, you would include a 362 field, which would have a formatted numbering statement. And on the next slide, we'll look at differences between formatted and unformatted numbering statements. You will not need a description based on note because it is understood that you are working from the first.
지금 여기서 설명하는 부분들이 만약에 우리가 창간호를 가지고 있다 그러면 formatted numbering statement 의미는 제1권 제1호 혹은 창간호 혹은 제1호 또는 1권 1호 이런 얘기입니다. 그때는 588에 대한 description based on note를 기술할 필요가 없다는 거죠. 그런데 만약에 우리가 그 창간호 첫 번째 발행된 간행물을 가지고 있지 않다면 그때는 요 360에는 formatted numbering statement가 표현되기 대신 사용하지 않고, 즉 제1권 제1호 창간호를 사용하지 않고 그 다음에 요 588에다가 description based on note를 해준다는 거죠. 그 다음에 만약에 우리가 창간호를 가지고 있지 않지만 그 다음에 그 창간호에 대한 정보를 우리가 알고 있다고 하면 그때는 362에 그대로 기록을 해주되, 여기서는 아까 우리가 본 것처럼 몇 권 몇 호부터 이야기가 설명이 되고, 그리고 588에 description based on note가 들어간다는 얘기입니다.
issue. If you're not cataloging from the first issue, you will not include that 362 field because you don't know for sure when it started, and then you have that 588 field with a description based on note. If you're not cataloging from the first issue, but you have information about it, you do know when it started, you will have both a 362 field with an unformatted numbering statement and your 588 description based on note. For example, if you have the first issue, you'll have a 362 field. The first indicator is 0, that means it's formatted. And what I mean by formatted is that the information is given in whatever format it appears on the item, and then you have an open date range so that at some point you can come back and close this date range when the serial ends. If you don't have the first issue, you don't have a 362 field, you just put your 588 note in, and you say description based on, and then give the enumeration of whatever item you are working with. And in that third scenario, if you don't have a first issue but you know when it was published, you need both your 362 field. In this case, we'll have an unformatted note, which means that the phrase began with appears in front of the volume number, and then you don't leave the date range open. You're just adding a note about when it began. And then you have a 588 field with your same description based on. You want to let people know what you were working from when you created this description. So once you've determined which issue you're working from and figured out how to reflect that in the catalog record, you also need to decide where on a particular item are you going to get the title and other information from. These next few slides show you that the title and enumeration and other information can vary depending on where you look on the item. For example, this is the cover of the item. This is the table of contents, which has a slightly different subtitle, and the enumeration is handled a little bit differently. And this is the back of the title page, which provides some different information about the publication. So we need to determine what's the preferred source of information. That's the terminology used in RDA. The preferred source is the title page.
지금 연속 간행물에 있어서 주 정본이 어디가 될 것이냐, 으뜸 정본 얘기를 하는 거죠. 그래서 타이틀 페이지 이건데 이 타이틀 페이지와 관련해서 우리는 지금 현재 코막에서는 아닙니다. 저기 한국 목록 규칙 제4판에서는 커버를 제일 우선으로 삼고 있는데 요 RDA에서는 타이틀 페이지를 우선으로 삼고 그 다음에 나오는 게 표지 그리고 캡션, 즉 타이틀 페이지이긴 하지만 거기에 내용까지 포함되어 있는 것, 특히 이제 퍼스트 페이지죠. 저기 커버를 열면 있는 부분들, 이제 이런 순서들이 여기서 제시를 하고 있습니다.
Individual serial issues don't necessarily always have title pages. Title pages by definition don't have any other content on them, and a lot of times serials will give their title on a page that has a table of contents or something like that. So if you don't have a title page, the substitutes in preferred order are the cover, and if you don't have anything on the cover, then go for the caption, which is the first page with content on it. The next option is a masthead, which is information about the publication that appears in every issue. And the last option is the colophon, which is a brief description of the publication, usually found on the back of the title page. If you do not get the title from the title page, you need to add a note, usually in a 500 field, indicating where the title came from. So if you got the title from the cover, you would add a note saying so. So those are some things to remember about sources of information when you're working with serial records. For week 2 of the Basic Serials Cataloging class, in this video we are going to talk about the sources of information for serials cataloging, meaning where do you look to get the information. main entry for a serial. You'll notice I put main entry in quotation marks on this slide, and I just did that to reference the fact that technically main entry isn't a term that's used anymore under RDA. It was from ASAR2 and really was more relevant in card catalogs when you had to determine one main relationship in order to organize the cards in your card catalog. But because marc formatting still requires there to be only one XX field in a record, we still need to determine sort of the primary relationship between whatever we're cataloging and one entity. So I'm still going to continue to use the phrase main entry even though it's not actually a part of RDA terminology, but I think it's the most succinct way to describe what I'm talking about here in this video. So most commonly for serials is to have a main entry under title. Usually there's not one particular person responsible for a serial, so that spans a whole range of years, months. You'll sometimes see a corporate body responsible if an organization publishes a serial, but it has to fall into a particular category. And sometimes you'll see a uniform title used as a main entry, and we'll talk more about what I mean by that in a little bit. So your decision process when you're deciding if there should be a main entry other than the title is, does it fit one of the categories in RDA 19.2.1.1.1? That really long number tells you that that is just specifying what type of materials can be considered to have a main entry of a corporate body, and we'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. If it doesn't fit one of those categories, then think about what the title is, and then think about whether or not it needs a uniform title. When I referenced RDA 19.2.1.1.1, what I meant was the rule that tells you when an item should have a corporate body as a main entry. Just because an item comes from an organization doesn't mean that it necessarily should have that organization considered as its author, basically, is what we're talking about here. The things that do need a main entry, which would go in a 110 field for a corporate body, are works of an administrative nature, things like annual reports, directories, things that actually talk about the organization itself, not some other topic. So if you had the Nebraska Association of Engineers and their annual report, that would be considered something that should have Nebraska Association of Engineers as a main entry. If the Nebraska Association of Engineers issued a serial publication on engineering in Nebraska, that isn't about the organization, so they would not need a main entry for that organization. The other category is something that represents the collective thought of a body, meaning they're expressing their opinions on an issue. So, for example, if there was a commission that regularly gave a report on an issue and gave their opinion on it, that could be considered something that you need to have a main entry for the organization, the commission. And things that represent the collective activity of a body, so things like proceedings from a conference that are put on by an organization. These are the categories that apply usually to serials. There are a few other categories in this section of RDA, but I'm not going to mention them at this point because they're not really that relevant for serials. So here are some examples of marked fields and what you'll see for each of these main entry options. If an entry is under a corporate body, you will have a 110 field with the corporate body's name, and then a 245 field with your title in it. Most common, like I said, is to have an entry under the title, and then you don't need a separate field from your 245. Your 245 functions as the main entry. You'll notice that in both of those examples, the first indicator is 0. This means that the title is the main entry. Now next we come to the concept of uniform title, which again is not RDA terminology, but because we're still working in marc, it still kind of sums up the best what we're dealing with here. A uniform title is necessary for serials when two publications have the same title.
지금 한국 목록 규칙에서는 유니폼 타이틀을 사용하고 있지 않습니다. 그러니까 이걸 통일 표제라고 얘기하는데 통일 표제를 사용하고 있지 않기 때문에 이건 그냥 참고로만 보시면 될 것 같습니다.
And it's a fairly generic title, and so you want to distinguish between those two titles. For example, We have two publications named Network in the first example here, and we have two publications named Bulletin in the second example. Now for both of these, you will have a 245 field with the title exactly how it appears on the issue that you're working from. But then you can see the uniform title, which goes in a 130 field, has a qualifier, parentheses, to distinguish the two. Sometimes it's the place of publication, but an organization that issues a particular publication can also be used as a qualifier. So these uniform titles serve the purpose of distinguishing two publications that have the same name. Every once in a while you might see a serial that has a personal author, meaning one person is responsible for all of the issues.
우리가 수업 시간에도 얘기했지만 연속 간행물에 있어서는 개인 책임 표시가 있는 경우가 거의 없습니다. 여기도 rare라고 지금 표시를 했듯이 거의 없지만 특별하게 있는 경우에 이제 표시한다는 내용을 소개하고 있습니다.
That's pretty rare because periodicals span usually a significant amount of time, and usually they have content created by a number of different people, so you won't usually see one person creating all the content for a serial. But if that ever did happen, probably a smaller newsletter might be an example of that. And so here is what it would look like. You would have a 100 field for the author's name and a 245 field for the title. So those are the options for main entry for serial. In the last session for this week, we're going to start talking specifically about some of the mark fields used. We're going to focus on fields that relate to title information to start with. The title itself, as appears on the preferred source of information, goes in the mark field 245. Here are the values for the indicators. The first indicates whether or not the title is an added entry. If the first indicator is 0, that means that the title is not an added entry, it's a main entry, as we discussed in the last video. And if the indicator is a 1, that means that the title is an added entry and there is some other main entry, most likely either a corporate body's name or a uniform title. The second indicator is used to represent the number of non-filing characters in the title. And what this means is characters that should be skipped when the title is being alphabetized. So if the title began with A, N, or the, you would need to have some non-filing characters indicated. If the title doesn't need to have that word skipped, then your second indicator would be 0. So if your title started with the, you would need to have a second indicator of 4, so it can skip 3 characters of THE, and then the space before the first word of the title to be alphabetized. The title proper is the main section of the title. It includes subfield A for the title, subfield N for the numbering of the section, and subfield P for the name of the section. You won't always have subfields N and P, but they might appear on serials sometimes. The title proper is important because it's used to determine major changes. Again, we'll talk later in this class about what exactly a major change in a serial is and when a new record is required. And then the title proper is used in links between older and newer versions of a particular record. So here are some examples of 245 fields. When you're transcribing the title proper, you generally transcribe it as it appears on your preferred source of information. You should omit things that vary.
여기서 보면은 만약에 표제가 될 부분에서 표제가 연회차, 연도 이런 내용들이 포함되어 있는 경우에 빼고 기록을 한다고 되어 있습니다. 맨 앞에 5번째 연간 보고서라고 치면 이 O50s를 빼고 그냥 연간 보고서 annual report라고 표시한다는 거죠. 그런데 앞에 정관사가 붙어 있는 경우에는 그 자리가 생략했다는 점점점을 표시해 가지고서 이렇게 쓴다는 지금 얘기입니다. 지금 요 내용들은 지금 RDA에 기반한 내용이죠.
From year to year, so if something said it was the 5th annual report, not everyone is going to be 5th, so you would leave that out and just put annual report. If it said the 1994 directory, you would omit that and put in the ellipsis, the 3 dots, to indicate that it's going to be the directory, but it's going to be a different year every time. So here's an example of our serial. We're taking information from the cover. And so here would be our 245 field. In this case, there's not another main entry, so the first indicator is 0. We don't need to skip any characters, so the second indicator is also 0. The title proper of Tennessee Ancestors goes in the subfield A with the period at the end. Because this didn't come from the title page, we do need to indicate where it came from, and so it came from the cover. And we'll talk about this more when we talk about notes later in the class, but you can combine the title from cover information with the description based on note, and so that's what happened in this case. Other title information, usually meaning subtitles, can be transcribed when considered useful. You can either include it as a subtitle in a subfield B in your 245 field, or you can include it as a note in a 500 field.
참 재미있는 부분이라고 볼 수 있는데, 우리가 일반적으로 245 태그에 본표제하고 표제 관련 정보 두 가지가 이제 일반적으로 이렇게 표시하는데, 이렇게 할 수도 있고, 또는 500 주기에 이렇게 표제 관련 정보를 표시할 수도 있다라는 이야기를 하고 있습니다.
That's cataloger's judgment involved there. You can decide which would work best for you. Another title-related field is mark field 246 for variant titles. These are other forms of the title that don't appear on the preferred source of information. The first indicator is used to tell the computer whether or not you want a note, meaning do you want this other title displayed to users in the catalog record, and also do you want an added entry, meaning should this be indexed in the title search. I would say most of the time you do want an added entry, so I would recommend using either 1 or 3 for this indicator. The second indicator tells you the type of title. So if you did have a title from a title page and you included the cover title, which was different in a 246, you would use the second indicator of 4, for example. And there are a lot of different options, as you can see there. One use of variant titles is for titles that appear elsewhere on the issue. So in that first example, Minor and Workman's Advocate was used in the 245, but Advocate appears on the cover. Sometimes you might want to spell out things that are abbreviated or symbols used in the title because your patrons might search that way. So if there was an ampersand in the title, you might spell out the word AND even if AND doesn't appear on the item. Parallel titles could also be included in a 246. Parallel titles are titles that are in a different language. So if you had something that was published and it had a title in both Japanese and English, you could put the English title in a 245 and the Japanese title in a 246. Sometimes with serials you'll need to use a 246 if the title varies between issues, if they're perhaps inconsistent in how they apply the title from issue to issue. You could go ahead and do that, such as you'll see in those first two examples. And you could also include titles that don't actually appear on the piece, but are useful. For example, if Tennessee Ancestors is popularly known as 10An, you can go ahead and do that. In this case, you would have subfield A for the title, but then you would also have subfield I, in which you would include a note that explains what this title is. And it's not really any of the categories that you can express using the indicators, but it's popularly known as. And this is something you probably would want to display in the record, so you would want to have a note for this as well as an added entry. So those are the fields that deal with title information in a serial record.